I'd say if I learned one thing over the years, it's to plan backward with clarity about the end results. And not to fixate on actions or activities unless you're clear about the intended outcome and you've thought about how you're going to know if your actions are successful. As a teacher, my early years, I would plan activities, what I'm going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, without having clarity about the outcome. As an administrator, I had many things on my plate, and I would rush to action plans, often prematurely before the problem was clearly defined, or people that I had to work with had in their heads what our goals were. So in the loosest sense, this is backward design planning, having clarity about the end in mind or clarity about the problem you're trying to solve before you rush to action or solution.
So there were a couple things that I got from attending the conference. The first one was how to unpack the core in order to get the essential questions. So what do I need my students to know, and how am I going to get them there? Which I think is really important, especially in science, because really the main idea with science is getting students to become critical thinkers, and so that they can use that skill in other aspects of their life. Which goes along with the other thing that I got from the conference was being basically a learning coach for my students. So giving them opportunities to develop this skill of critical thinking in ways that are similar to things that they would be doing in their real outside of school life.
There were two main things that I learned from the conference that we went to. First one, you should go deep in your curriculum versus being broad. If you go broad, you teach a lot of stuff and the students remember nothing about a lot of different categories. You go deep, you pick a category that is something that will be interesting to them and something that is useful, and they might actually remember something about what you taught them. Second thing I remember from the conference that I thought was good is he said teach students to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Rather than just having the students give you an answer, try to have them construct an argument as to why it's a valid answer, and then have another student say why they think a student responded one way, whether you agree or disagree. So Alexis said this, do you agree with that? And why do you think she said that? Works out really well.
Hi staff. Today I want to talk a little bit about the big picture. Going to this conference, let me reflect on my own education, both high school and university. And I liken those experiences to a carnival, where you go to all these little booths and you do a little activity. And it's all very discreet and independent. Whereas the big picture, every class, every experience that you have in high school should have, seems to me, some commonality, some kind of takeaway that you're going to remember even a year later after you're out of that class. It may be how to write properly, correctly. It may be certain mathematical principles that help you with reasoning so that you carry over that same logical thinking into other areas. It could be the principles of a democracy. Why do we have public education in the first place if not to be turning out good citizens? So anyway, that's what I learned in this experience, is that we need to have these fundamental principles, these fundamental truths that we continually identify for the students, as well as the day-to-day little activities that have to be completed in order to get through the mini term.
All right, there's probably two words I took away from the conference we went to. One's transfer and one's perseverance. If you come watch a Friday class of ours, me and Travis out there playing sports, you'll see a lot of examples of a lack of perseverance. And so it's been natural to try to implement lessons and life strategies about dealing with adversity while playing sports and so on. I also would like to use more examples of good perseverance in my content area that I'm working on. For transfer, I've tried to apply things that students are interested in, the lessons of history, and it's worked really well. We studied the causes of World War I, the different isms, as we call them, that caused World War I, and I had a right to learn activity where the students looked at, could there be a World War III, and what isms would be needed. That led to a lot of good discussions with logic and argument, and trying to teach students how to put those skills into use, and they really enjoyed that activity.
What I learned at the conference was from the Soccer Association. It compared teachers to soccer coaches, and it talked about how important it was to teach the students to play for the game, and I think that's just what we're doing in our classes at Mountain High. We're teaching for the game of life. I always say in facts that I teach real skills for real life, and I really think that's what we need to do. We also need to teach our students to love the game, or to love learning. We aren't just teachers of a subject, we're teachers of learning. And to make lifelong learners, we need to teach students to love learning and to learn how to learn. That's an important part. Our goal is to prepare students for real life, so we need to make sure that our classes are geared to situations that will help them in their lives, not only from school perspective, but also from a real life perspective. So we can learn a lot from coaches. Besides that, easy coaches never win championships. You got to have hard coaches that push and really teach skills so that they can be successful.
Well, in terms of mistakes in my career, I could probably rattle off a whole litany, but one that comes to mind from my early teaching days was quite literally a mistaken conception of my job. I thought as a beginning teacher that my job was basically to cover a textbook, which was bought by the district and given to me. And I thought that because that's what I had experienced by and large in school, from elementary through university. There was a book and we marched through it, and we tried to finish it by the end of the school year, and so that's really what I thought my job was. And it wasn't until some years later that it sort of dawned on me that my job's not to cover a book. The book is not the curriculum, nor does the book always highlight the most important outcomes of teaching. Interestingly, I came to that aha in reflecting on my experience as a coach. I coach swimming. And so as a coach, I was clearly focused on outcomes, and my coaching, or my teaching in coaching, was directed toward the outcomes, which were improving swimmers' times. But I also found, I differentiated naturally. The workouts of the sprinters were different than the workouts for the distance swimmers. And the coaching and modeling that the beginning swimmers needed if they're learning butterfly stroke was not the same as the experienced butterfliers. I'm really a coach when I'm a teacher. I'm coaching kids toward the performances that we're after, be it in writing, reading, problem solving. And that the book, like the swimming manual, is a resource. My job isn't to cover it. And that really transformed my teaching, I think, for the good, and it has lasted with me for my whole